My name is Reese, and this could be the most important video you ever watch in your entire life. I've really struggled with the idea of making this video, and let me just start off by saying that this video provides value beyond anything else in which you can find on YouTube. This video will give you information unlike any other video that you can watch on YouTube. I've been going back and forth for days on whether or not to make this video, and the reason I kept hesitating is because Jesus himself said in Matthew chapter 24 that many false prophets will arise and deceive many people. I take that seriously. I take that so seriously. I take that so seriously that every time I thought about hitting record on this, I would stop myself and go like, am I the guy? Am I being that guy right now? I don't want to be that guy. So I'm just making this video raw, unfiltered, unedited, just so I can provide y'all with what I have researched and what I have found out. I don't want to be the people that Jesus literally warned us about. Some dude on the internet making claims about the end times to get attention. I don't want that. I don't want that. And I had to sit with that for a while and really check my motives before I could do this. And here's where I landed. I know I'm not a prophet. I'm not claiming to have a divine revelation or a word of God, a word from God. I'm not claiming special revelation. I don't hear voices. I don't have dreams telling me these things. I'm a regular man, just like you, who reads his Bible and watches the news. And what I'm about to share with you is it's not prophecy. I would call it observation. I'm just a guy paying attention. And the reason I feel okay sharing this, the reason that I actually feel I'd be wrong not to share it is because the same Jesus who warned us about false prophets and told us in the exact same chapter to watch for signs, He didn't just say, be careful of the face. He also said, when you see these things begin to take place, lift up your heads because your redemption draws near. He told us, Matthew chapter 24, verse 33, it says, when you see these things, recognize that he is near, right at the door. And believe me, what I have found out, I truly believe he is right at the door. He wants us watching. He wouldn't have given us all the signs if he didn't want us to watch. He wants us paying attention. I truly believe that if we pay attention, we will be able to decipher and figure out not the exact time, because God says no one knows the day nor hour, and I am fully aware of that, and I fully believe that. But you could probably narrow it down to a couple years, for sure. I'm not prophesying. I'm watching. And what I'm watching right now is lining up in a way that I cannot ignore anymore. And I think if you actually sit through this whole video and look at what I'm about to show you, you won't be able to ignore it either. And I need to be honest with you about something else too before I get into it. Part of the reason why I've been hesitant is it's personal. Like, it's not just a theological concern about false prophets. It's that a few nights ago, I was up until like 1 a.m. reading about the new president of Syria because I had seen something about him on social media, and I started going through his biography and cross-referencing it with Daniel, and I felt something in my chest that I have not been able to shake. Like when your body recognizes something is significant before your brain has finished processing it. I felt that feeling. So I stayed up until almost 4 that morning, going through source after source after source. And by the end of it, I genuinely felt unsettled in a way I haven't felt in a long time. And not unsettled like I'm scared. Unsettled like convicted. Like God was saying, pay attention. This matters and you need to tell people about it. So here's what I found. You can take it or leave it, but I'm begging you, please watch this video. Please. It will help you understand. I want to help Christians around the world be equipped and not be deceived during the end times that are about to come upon us. The first thing you need to understand is that Jesus didn't just warn us about false prophets. He gave us a specific list of signs to watch for in Matthew chapter 24 and Luke 21. And those signs have corresponding prerequisites throughout the Old Testament, particularly in Daniel and Isaiah, that have to be in place. Those prerequisites, they have to be in place before any of the end times events can unfold. It's kind of like this has to happen before any of this has to happen. And for most of human history, those prerequisites were not in place, which means people could speculate all they wanted to about living in the last days, but the conditions on the ground didn't match the biblical requirements. And what I'm about to show you is that in 2026, the year that we just entered, right now, every single one of those conditions is met simultaneously for the first time in the history of the world. For the first time, every single one checked. One of the first prerequisites was Israel had to become a nation again. Because without Israel existing as a sovereign country, none of the temple prophecies work. None of the covenant prophecies work. There's no stage for the end times to play out on. And that didn't happen until May 14th, 1948. And I know a lot of people have heard that before, and it feels like old news. But I need you to understand that Isaiah 66:8 asked a question 3,000 years ago. It said, "Can a country be born in a day? Can a nation be brought forth in a moment?" And for almost all of human history, the answer is no. That's absurd. Until one day, it happened exactly the way the prophet described it, with Israel becoming a nation back in 1948. Another prerequisite is Syria had to exist as an independent sovereign nation because the figure that Daniel calls the King of the North is one of the primary titles used for the Antichrist in Daniel chapter 8 and chapter 11. That title specifically refers to the ruler of the territory that was once called the ancient Seleucid Empire. It was a huge empire. And if you pull up a map of the Seleucid Empire and lay it over a modern map of Middle East, it matches up with Syria. That's been the consistent interpretation for thousands of years across multiple traditions and denominations and beliefs. And Syria didn't become an independent country until 1961. So that is the second prerequisite. The third prerequisite is Israel had to control the Temple Mount because you cannot rebuild the temple on land you don't possess. And that didn't happen until the 6-Day War in June of 1967, when Israeli paratroopers captured the old city of Jerusalem. And there's that iconic photo of the soldiers standing at the Western Wall with some of them weeping because Jews hadn't controlled that site in nearly 2,000 years. But here's the tension. They control it, but they don't fully control it because of the Islamic regime that still manages the day-to-day operations on top of the mount. And that exact tension is precisely what you'd expect to see if you're reading the prophecies about what has to happen before the temple gets rebuilt. The fourth prerequisite is that the temple preparations themselves are further along than people realize. The rebuilding of the third temple. The Temple Institute in Jerusalem has already recreated over 60 sacred vessels required for temple service, and we're talking about the golden menorah, the showbread table, the priestly garments, the breastplate with the 12 stones in it, all to be built to the exact biblical specifications and be ready to be used. Not museum pieces, but functional instruments. And they've identified and trained Levitical priests. They've completed architectural blueprints. And in 2022, 5 red heifers, which are cows, were flown from a ranch in Texas to Israel, because number 19 requires a perfect, unblemished red heifer for the purification ashes before temple worship can begin. And those heifers are in Israel right now as I'm recording this. And then there's the big thing, the peace treaty. It's the Abraham Accords. This was signed September 15th in 2020, which is a series of normalization agreements between Israel and multiple Arab nations. The UAE, the Moroccan government, Sudan, Kazakhstan, Bahrain. And in Daniel 9:27, it specifically says he will confirm a covenant with many. He's talking about the Antichrist here. He will confirm a covenant with many. Not with one nation, with many. And this covenant is actively expanding right now, with the United States aggressively pushing for Syria and Saudi Arabia to join next. The United States wants Syria, and they want Saudi Arabia to join next. And I'm going to come back to the Syria part, because that's where everything I'm about to show you converges and literally sends a light bulb off. And then you have Revelation 13 describing a system where no one can buy or sell without a mark, the mark of the beast, in which for 2,000 years that was completely unimaginable. If you told me 40 years ago that this would happen, if I was alive 40 years ago, I'd be like, no way. There's no way that could happen. There was no mechanism on earth that could track and control every transaction globally. But now we have digital identification systems, biometric payments, central bank digital currencies, and social credit scoring and facial recognition at a scale that would have sounded like science fiction 25 years ago. And Revelation 11:9 says the whole world will see the two witnesses lying in the street simultaneously at the end of the days. Two witnesses are two prophetic figures that are talked about in Revelation that are said to come divinely from God, from heaven, that are going to preach the word of God during the end of days. The Antichrist will ultimately kill them. But anyways, Revelation also says the whole world will be watching their dead bodies lying in the street simultaneously, like everyone in the world, which was physically impossible before global telecommunications. And now every human being with a smartphone can watch anything happening in the world in real time. And that verse doesn't sound as supernatural anymore. That's definitely possible. Jesus told us in Luke 21:29 to look at the fig tree and all the trees. When they sprout leaves, you can see for yourself that the summer is near. When a tree starts to sprout its buds and its leaves and its fruit, it's getting warmer outside. You can tell. And he said, when you see these things happening, recognize that the kingdom of God is near. He told us to watch. He gave us these signs specifically so we would recognize them. And every single sign, every single prerequisite is in a place right now at the same time for the first time in the history of the world. So that's the stage. That's the prerequisites. Now, let me tell you who just walked onto that stage. In November of 2024, a man named Ahmed al-Sharaa launched a military offensive in Syria that overthrew the Assad regime, a dynasty that had been in power for over 50 years. In 11 days, he threw this regime over. 11. Do you realize how insane that is? 11 days. When I first saw the headlines, I thought, okay, that's significant, but I didn't understand how significant until the night I started reading his full biography and cross-referencing it with Daniel. And I could not stop because every single thing I read was like another checkbox for the Antichrist. I think I found like 33 checkboxes that fulfill both Christianity based view end times Antichrist checkboxes and as well as Islamic. Daniel 11:21 says the Antichrist will not be given the honor of royalty. He will be what the text calls a contemptible person who seizes kingdoms through intrigue. And this man was born, Ahmed al-Sharaa, he was born to a middle-class family in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. His father was an oil engineer. He grew up working at his dad's grocery store. He had no political connections. He was just a normal guy. No royal lineage. No inherited authority. And until December 2024, the entire Western world knew him by his terrorist alias, which was Abu Muhammad al-Julani. And he had a $10 million American bounty on his head. He was one of the top terrorists globally who was wanted. $10 million to get this guy killed. And now he's the president of Syria, sitting across from Donald Trump in the White House. He met with him last November in the White House. And he is addressing the United Nations General Assembly and being described by major think tanks as a pragmatist, a populist, and a realist. He went from the most wanted terrorist to the most celebrated new leader on earth in less than 12 months. And I need to slow down here for a second because I don't think people are fully grasping how insane this trajectory is. This man was designated by the United States government as a global terrorist. The State Department put him on the list in 2013. They offered $10 million for information leading to his capture. He was Al-Qaeda. He fought against American soldiers in Iraq. He was captured and imprisoned by American forces. He founded a group that the United Nations still has on their sanctions list as of right now in 2026. And in less than 12 months, he went from that, from a man the U.S. government wanted in a cage, to sitting across from the president of the United States in the White House being called an attractive, tough guy and being asked to sign a peace treaty deal with Israel. That is not reformation. That is intrigue. That is exactly what Daniel described. And the fact that the entire world just blindly accepted it, that nobody seems alarmed by it, that the media is framing this as some kind of redemption story instead of what it actually looked like when you read it next to Daniel 11, that should chill you to your core. Let me read you the verse from Daniel 11. Daniel 11 says, with only a few people he will rise to power. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what it's saying. He will rise to power with very, very few people. Well, guess what he did when he overthrew the Assad regime in 11 days? His group controlled his little revolution group, controlled one single province in Syria. It's called Idlib. This small area in the northwest corner. Couple thousand fighters. And from that one province, he launched an offensive that captured Aleppo, then Hama, then Homs, then Damascus. These are cities in Syria. Does that not blow you away? The entire country of Syria fell like dominoes when this revolution took place to overthrow Syria. Assad fled to Russia in the middle of the night. And al-Sharaa walking into the great mosque of Damascus on December 8th was incredibly chilling. And the world, you know what the world called it? They called it liberation. They failed to see what's under the mask. So this man rose to power with only a couple thousand troops, overthrew a whole country. January 29th, 2025. He's declared president at a victory conference. Not elected. No vote. No democratic process whatsoever. And immediately, the first thing he does, the very first thing he does to the Syrian government is he immediately dissolves their constitution. He abolishes the prime minister position. He dissolves every single military faction in the country under his single control and gives himself a 5-year mandate. Let that sink in. 5 years. A 5-year mandate. Which means he will rule for 5 years. So, in my opinion, in less than 5 years, we will be in the 7-year tribulation. And the international response to this, all these things he starts doing, it's not like they're not concerned, it's applause. They're praising him. Daniel 8:23 describes the Antichrist as a master of intrigue will arise. Daniel 11:40 references the king of the north. He is the president of Syria. Syria is the king of the north territory. The Bible is a Middle Eastern book. It is a Israeli book. It was written by people all over Israel, mostly. Israel is the central country that is referenced multiple times in the Bible. The country that is north of Israel, directly north, is Syria. That's not interpretation. That's geography laid on top of scripture, and they match perfectly. Daniel 11:37 says he'll show no regard for the gods of his ancestors. He'll be ecumenical. He's appointed an Alawite, a Druze, a Christian, a Kurd to his cabinet. All sorts of denominations. He is all sorts of religious beliefs. It is a melting pot in the Syrian government. He's pushing for women's empowerment. He's recognized the Kurdish language, in which the Syrians used to hate the Kurds. Hate. I mean, Al-Qaeda considered the Kurds their like number one sworn enemy. He recognized Kurdish language as a national language, and ISIS. ISIS was the most fundamentalist Islamic group on the planet. They have tried to assassinate him multiple times, and issue a public statement condemning him as an apostate, calling him a priority target for execution because he's too moderate, too secular, too Western friendly. And the part that keeps me up at night is that Donald Trump sat down with this man, and Donald Trump urged him to join the Abraham Accords. He's like, bro, please, bro, please sign these accords. Like, we need you. Not only once, but twice. Once in Riyadh, the Antichrist, my opinion of the Antichrist birthplace. In Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, in May in 2025. And then again in the White House in November 2025, which was the first time a Syrian president has ever visited the White House in American history. And when Fox News asked al-Sharaa directly whether Syria would join, his answer was not no. His answer was, and I quote, listen to this carefully, "We are not going to enter a negotiation directly right now. Maybe the United States administration with President Trump will help us reach this kind of negotiation." Who's holding all the cards? Ahmed. He's holding all the cards. He's like, not right now. Maybe. It'll take some convincing. And Trump is on his knees, looking up at him, sucking him off. Bro, please, can you please sign these accords? Please. I'm telling you, this guy, he's holding all these people and playing them like a puppet. The covenant with many is being extended to the king of the north, and he is leaving the door wide open. And I need someone to explain to me how that's not significant. This next section, I almost didn't include because I didn't want the video to be too long. And it pulls from the Quran and Islamic prophecy, and I understand the Quran is a Satan-inspired book. But I took a little deep dive into Islamic prophecy, and there's a figure out there that they call the Mahdi. So let me read my notes here. So the Islamic prophecies, they talk about a figure called the Mahdi, who Muslims believe believe this figure will come in the end times to lead the faithful and line up, bring about world peace, one world religion. Should I keep going? Who does that sound like? The Mahdi for the Muslims is the Antichrist for the Christians. They're the same person. They are the same person. And if you don't think this book is Satan-inspired, just wait. I'm going to prove it. The prophecies of Islam and the Mahdi line up in a way that's almost impossible to dismiss as a coincidence, and that's why it matters for us as Christians. Many serious biblical scholars believe that what Islam calls the Mahdi is the same person the Bible calls as the Antichrist, as I just stated. A false Messiah who fulfills the prophetic expectations of multiple religions simultaneously and deceives the whole world through counterfeit legitimacy. And I want to emphasize again, I am not prophesying. I'm reading publicly available information and comparing it to publicly available religious texts. That's all I'm doing. Literally just Google, research. And Jesus told us to watch, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to obey the command the Lord gave me. So, Islamic tradition, in the Quran, it says that the Mahdi will be born in Saudi Arabia. Ahmed al-Sharaa was born in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on October 29th, 1982. Just wait. It gets more chilling. It gets better. Islamic tradition says his name will be Ahmad. The Mahdi's name will be Ahmad. And his father's name will correspond to Hussein. So Hussein spelled Hussein. His full legal name, the current president of Syria, is Ahmad Hussein al-Sharaa. His father's name is Hussein. I didn't manipulate anything there. It's publicly available information. That's just his name matching the prophecy exactly. It said in the Quran that the Mahdi, his father's name will be Hussein. Islamic tradition also says that he'll be around 40 when he arises. He was 42 years old when he seized Syria. Islamic tradition says he'll descend from the Prophet Muhammad. According to Wikipedia, the New York Times, and multiple biographical sources, his family maintains a tradition of the direct descendant of Muhammad. Islamic tradition says that the Mahdi will be preceded by lunar and solar eclipses during Ramadan. Guess what happened? In 2024, the exact year he seized power, there was a lunar eclipse March 25th, and there was a solar eclipse April 8th, both during Ramadan. In 2025, there was a total lunar eclipse March 13th and a partial solar eclipse March 29th, both during Ramadan. What are the odds that those happen on Ramadan? Back-to-back years of dual eclipses during Ramadan, bookending his rise to power. Islamic tradition says that the Mahdi will appear at the Great Mosque in Damascus. His first public address after seizing Syria was the Umayyad Mosque, the Great Mosque of Damascus, on December 8th, 2024. His faction rides under black flags, in which the Hadith and Ibn Majah describes as the banner of the Mahdi's army. When he seized Syria, his 2,000 troops that he had, the color of their flags were black. And I'm sitting here looking at all this, thinking about what Jesus said. He said false messiahs will come and they will deceive many. And he said to watch for signs, right? And I'm watching, and what I'm seeing is a man who simultaneously fulfills the prophetic expectations of both Christianity and Islam in a way that would make him the most convincing false messiah in history. Because he doesn't just check the boxes from one tradition. He doesn't just check the boxes from the Christianity version of the Antichrist. He also checks the boxes of the Islamic Antichrist. And if that's not worth talking about, then I don't know what is. When Muslims around the world start to realize the boxes that he's checking in the Quran, there will be no stopping it. And all of this is unfolding right now in the middle of an actual war. The United States and Israel launched joint strikes on Iran on February 28th, 2026. The supreme leader of Iran was killed in the opening salvo. Iran is retaliating across 9 countries. This is the largest army conflict in the Middle East since the Iraq War. People are dying every single day. In the Middle East, in the middle of all that chaos, Ahmed al-Sharaa is sitting in Damascus, backed by the most powerful country on earth, positioned as the moderate peacemaker, with the Abraham Accords being extended to him on a silver platter, building international legitimacy at a pace that would be impressive for any leader, but is absolutely staggering for a man who 12 months ago was on a terrorist watch list. I keep waiting for one of the boxes to not check. I keep looking for the detail that breaks the pattern, and I can't find it. And I don't know what to do with that other than to show you what I found and let you just sit with it the same way I've been sitting with it. I'm just telling you what I found. So here's the part where I talk to you directly, because I didn't make this video just to lay out evidence. I made it because I think most men, specifically watching this right now, are doing the same thing I did for years, which is consuming prophecy content without letting it change anything about how you actually live. And I have to be blunt with you about this because I care about you. I care about my clients. If you watch this video, feel something, share it, maybe talk about it with a friend, then go back to the exact same life you were living before you clicked on it, same patterns, same hidden stuff, same cycle of 2 good weeks, followed by a crash, followed by shame, followed by silence, followed by starting over, then you are doing exactly what Jesus warned against. Because the same passage where he tells us to watch for signs, he also tells us the parable of the 10 virgins in Matthew chapter 25. 5 who were prepared and 5 who weren't. And the 5 who weren't didn't fail because they didn't believe. They failed because they weren't ready. They knew the bridegroom was coming. They just didn't prepare. And I think most Christian men in their 20s and 30s right now are the unprepared. They are the unprepared virgins in biblical, relating to that biblical passage. We believe it. We believe about the prophetical events that are about to take place in the world. We just haven't built our lives around it. We have all the theology and none of the infrastructure. We can quote Daniel and Revelation, but we can't go 2 weeks without falling back into the same cycle we've been stuck in for years. And I know that because I was that man for a long time. I could tell you everything about end times prophecy while my private life was a complete disaster. The conviction from studying this stuff would hit me like a wave. I would want to tell people, I would want to change, I would actually want to start living for the Lord. And then it would just recede and nothing would be different. And I just go back to the same patterns because conviction without infrastructure is just a feeling, and the feelings fade. They always fade. And then you're right back where you started, wondering why you can't change. You're watching porn, you're doing drugs, you're drinking alcohol, you're not actually making an impact in somebody's life. It sucks. Why do you do that? And what actually shifted the things for me wasn't learning about more information. I didn't continue to consume all this information. It wasn't getting scary enough. I wasn't finding one more YouTube video that finally made it click. It was actually applying the information. It was building my actual daily life in a way where the things I said and I believed were reflected in the way I actually lived. Not when I felt inspired, not when I was riding a wave of conviction, but every single day, including the days when I felt absolutely nothing. And that shift didn't happen by accident, and it didn't happen through willpower. It happened because I finally got honest about the fact that I couldn't do it alone. And I let someone help me build something around my specific life that worked even when I didn't want to. And I'm not going to sit here and pitch to you for 10 minutes because if you've been following me, you know what my business is and what Anchored Men is. And if this is the first time you're seeing me, then my other content will fill in the blanks. Go to my Instagram, go to my other YouTube video that I uploaded. But I will say this one thing and then I'm done. Prophecy was never meant to be entertainment. Jesus didn't give us the signs so we can make content about them or argue about them on the internet or get a little like adrenaline rush every time something happens in the Middle East. He gave us the signs so we can prepare, so we would be ready, so we would be the wise virgins and not the foolish ones. And if you're being honest with yourself right now, really, really, really honest, not like church honest, but just be completely real with yourself. Like you're alone in your room at midnight. You know whether you're ready or not. You know whether your life reflects what you say you believe. You know whether you've actually built something, or just keep watching, or just keep scrolling, keep consuming information. You need to apply the information. You need to know if you've actually built something, or whether you've just been intending to. The stage is set. Every prerequisite is in place. The signs Jesus told us to watch for are everywhere. The question isn't whether the end is near. That's not the question. The question is whether you're going to do anything about it, or you're just going to keep watching and not change. Are you just going to keep watching the worldly events unfold? Link will be in the description if you're done watching and actually ready to build something.